Bitcoin, following the federal government's lead, states may be looking to crack down on businesses that trade the virtual currency. Wall Street Journal's Andrew Johnson has the story. Hey, Andrew.
Hey.
All right, so before we get to the details, remind people, what is Bitcoin?
Well, it's a virtual form of money. You can create it online by solving these complex algorithms through a process known as mining. You can also buy it through exchanges that have cropped up over the last year, and it's a way of basically paying each other online primarily. There are some merchants that are now accepting it online, and even some physical retailers that are starting to accept it.
Okay, but there's a concern that this currency supports money laundering.
Right.
Tell us about that.
There's concerns that because you can be largely anonymous in these transactions, it's possible to use it for illegal purposes, buying drugs.
How would you launder if this is virtual cash? I mean, how do you turn real dollars into virtual cash back into real dollars?
Right. Well, there are services that eventually allow you to convert that back into U.S. dollars or whatever currency that you might want to use. And for a lot of these services, you don't need to use your name. You need to set up an account, but you can keep like your actual identity, somewhat secret.
Okay. So now tell us, what are states doing?
So states basically have rules for companies selling services such as prepaid cards, money transfers, check cashing businesses, and it basically just requiring them to show that they have the financial wherewithal to offer these services, and also make sure that they're doing checks and balances to make sure that those services aren't being used for illicit purposes. They're now kind of checking to see if these virtual currencies fall under those rules, and they do have some concerns that businesses that are primarily selling or exchanging Bitcoin, for instance, would fall under those.
The states are, in this case, actually following the federal government's lead, it sounds like. Tell us what the feds have been doing.
Sure. They are following the Fed's lead to some extent. The Fed in March, a unit of the Treasury Department called the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, basically clarified that existing rules that are already on the books do apply to companies that are selling and exchanging virtual currencies. These are rules that apply to companies like Western Union, MoneyGram, businesses that are selling money transfers through storefronts and grocery stores and things like that. And what they said was, if you're selling or using virtual currencies in that same format, you also need to register with us. And we have heard of companies that have gone through that process already, but the states have their own rules, and just because you're registered at the federal level doesn't mean that you've done everything that you need to do at the state level.
Tell us quickly some of the companies that are at issue here.
There's a
probably some
called,
people haven't heard about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a company called BitInstant that has received some communication from the New York banking department. It's important to note that what we've heard is that these are not formal cease and desist letters. They're kind of the precursor to that. So saying, you may be running afoul of our rules. We want you to clarify what exactly it is that you're doing to determine if we need to take further action or if more needs to be done.
Okay. Andrew Johnson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.